A wealthy widow, tired of loneliness but not of luxury, decides it's time to remarry. She places an ad in the newspaper that reads, "Widowed and wealthy, seeking a husband. Only 3 requirements. Must not beat me. Must not walk all over me. Must be good in bed. Inquiries in person. Widow's Peak, 9 a.m. sharp." The next morning, right at 9 a.m., her doorbell rings. She opens the door and is surprised to find a middle-aged man sitting in a wheelchair. He's clean-shaven, well-dressed, and clearly has no arms or legs. "Good morning," he says with a smile. "I came about your ad in the paper." The widow raises an eyebrow. "Seriously? You think you meet the qualifications?" "Why not?" he replies calmly. "Well, for starters, you have no arms." "Exactly," he says. "So I couldn't possibly beat you." She frowns. "Fine, but you also have no legs. And that means I couldn't walk all over you either," he replies with a wink. The widow crosses her arms. "All right then. What on earth makes you think you're good in bed?" The man grins. "Ma'am, how do you think I rang the doorbell?" Wives seem to love this one. In a dark and hazy room, peering into a crystal ball, the mystic delivered grave news. There's no easy way to tell you this, so I'll just be blunt. Prepare yourself to be a widow. Your husband will die a violent and horrible death this year. Visibly shaken, Laura stared at the woman's lined face, then at the single flickering candle, then down at her hands. She took a few deep breaths to compose herself and to stop her mind racing. She simply had to know. She met the fortune teller's gaze, steadied her voice, and asked, "Will I be acquitted?" Man walks into a bar with a large monkey. Bartender, "Hey, get that nasty thing out of here." Man, "Don't worry, I'll pay for anything he breaks." Monkey jumps you on the bar, walked to the drink well, and scooped out a handful of olives and puts them in his mouth, slobbering all over the place. Bartender, hands in the air, "Did you see what that nasty creature just did?" Man, "I'm telling you, don't worry, I'll pay for anything he breaks." Monkey scooped out a handful of cherries and puts them in his mouth, still slobbering all over the place. Bartender, beside himself, "You have to leave." Man, calmly, "I'm telling you. Don't worry, I'll pay for anything he breaks." Monkey jumps from the bar to a pool table, picks up the quee ball, puts it in his mouth, wallows it about, then swallowed it. Man, "Well damn, what's the tab?" Puts the money on the table, gathers up the monkey, and leaves. A week later, same man walks back and out into the bar with the large monkey. Bartender, "Hey, get that nasty thing out of here." Man, once again, "Don't worry, I'll pay for anything he breaks." Monkey jumps you on the bar, walks to the drink well, picks up a single cherry, lifts his leg and sticks it in his bottom, pulls it out, looking at the bartender, and eats it. Bartender, about to have a stroke, grossed out. "Did you see what that nasty creature just did? What the hell was that?" Man, "Well, ever since he swallowed that pool ball, he's been checking the size of everything first. Two young boys strolled into a pharmacy one afternoon. They browsed the aisles, finally selecting a box of tampons, and headed to the checkout counter. The pharmacist, intrigued by their purchase, looked at the older boy and asked, "How old are you, son?" "8, the boy answered confidently. With a curious smile, the pharmacist inquired, "Do you know what these are used for?" The boy replied, "Not exactly, but they're not for me. They're for my little brother. He's 4. The pharmacist chuckled and said, "Oh, really?" "Yeah," the boy explained. "We saw on TV that if you use these, you can swim, play tennis, and ride a bike. My brother can't do any of those things yet." A blonde decided to try ice fishing for the first time. She bought all the necessary gear and headed to a local ice fishing spot. Once there, she set up her stool and began cutting a hole in the ice, just like she'd seen online. As she worked, she heard a booming voice from above say, "There are no fish under the ice." Startled, she looked around but saw no one. Shrugging it off, she moved to another spot on the ice, set up her gear, and started cutting a new hole. The same voice echoed again. "There are no fish under the ice." Now a bit nervous, she decided to try a different location, moving to the far end of the ice. She set up her gear and began cutting yet another hole. The voice returned, this time even louder. "There are no fish under the ice." Frustrated and scared, she stood up and shouted to the heavens, "Is that you, Lord?" The voice replied, "No, this is the manager of the ice skating rink. There are no fish under the ice." A wife was peacefully frying eggs for breakfast when her husband suddenly charged into the kitchen like a man on a mission. "Careful, careful," he yelled, eyes wide with panic. "Add more butter. Oh my God, you're cooking too many eggs at once. Too many. Turn them now." The wife blinked in confusion as he continued his dramatic performance. "We need more butter. Where are we going to get more butter? They're going to stick. Careful, careful. I said be careful. You never listen to me when you're cooking. Never. Turn them. Hurry. Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? And don't forget the salt. You always forget the salt. Use the salt. The salt." His wife stopped, spatula mid-air, and stared at him. "What is wrong with you? You think I don't know how to fry eggs?" Her husband, with a smirk, replied calmly, "I just wanted to show you what it feels like when I'm driving." He is now recovering in a hospital. Jane and Arlene are outside their nursing home, having a drink and a smoke when it starts to rain. Jane pulls out a condom, cuts off the end, puts it over her cigarette, and continues smoking. Arlene, "What in the hell is that?" Jane, "A condom. This way my cigarette doesn't get wet." Arlene, "Where did you get it?" Jane, "You can get them at any pharmacy." The next day, Arlene hobbles herself into the local pharmacy and announces to the pharmacist that she wants a box of condoms. The pharmacist, obviously embarrassed, looks at her kind of strangely. She is, after all, over 80 years of age, but very delicately asks what size, texture, brand of condom she prefers. "Doesn't matter, Sonny, as long as it fits on a camel." The pharmacist fainted. A woman comes home and excitedly tells her husband, "You know those headaches I've had for years? They're finally gone." "Really? No more headaches?" her husband asks, surprised. "What happened?" "Margie told me about this hypnotist," she replies. "He had me stand in front of a mirror, look at myself and repeat, 'I do not have a headache. I do not have a headache. I do not have a headache.' And believe it or not, it worked. No more headaches." "That's great," her husband says, impressed. Encouraged, the wife adds, "Well, since it worked for my headaches, maybe you should see him too. You know, things haven't been quite the same in the bedroom lately. Maybe he can help with that too." Eager to try, the husband visits the hypnotist. Later that evening, he comes home, full of energy, sweeps his wife into his arms, and carries her to the bedroom. "Wait right here," he says confidently, then disappears into the bathroom. A few moments later, he returns and shows his wife more attention than ever before. "Wow, that was incredible," she exclaims. "Don't move," he says with a smile. "I'll be right back." Once again, he heads into the bathroom, returns, and things are even better the second time. The wife, feeling overjoyed, watches him as he heads to the bathroom a third time. Curious, she quietly follows him and peeks in. To her surprise, she sees him standing in front of the mirror, repeating to himself, "She's my wife. She's my wife. She's my wife." They're now living happily ever after. A widowed mother of 3 was worried her kids weren't getting enough iron in their diet. Not knowing what else to do, she stirred a few BBs into their oatmeal one morning. Later that day, the youngest came running into the kitchen. Mama, guess what? I peed a bee." The mother smiled. "Well, that's great. That means you're getting your iron." She handed the child a cookie and sent him on his way. A little while later, the second child burst in. Mama, guess what? I peed a BB too." Once again, she smiled and said, "Wonderful, you're getting your iron." Another cookie. Another happy kid. Soon the oldest came in, wide-eyed and pale. Mama," she interrupted, reaching for the cookie jar. I know, you peed a BB. That's great." "No, Mama," he cried. "I was playing behind the barn and accidentally shot the dog." An elderly woman had 3 grown-up sons who each decided to give her a special gift for her milestone birthday. The first son, who had become very successful in life, bought his mother a magnificent, spacious house. The second son, wanting to impress, gifted her a luxurious car. The third son, knowing how deeply religious his mother was, searched tirelessly for the perfect gift. After much effort, he discovered an extraordinarily rare parrot that could recite the entire Bible and interpret its prophecies. The only catch was that the bird was in Madagascar and came with an astronomical price tag. Determined to make his mother happy, the third son sold his house and car to afford the journey and purchase the parrot. Sometime later, the elderly woman wrote to her sons to thank them. To her first son, she wrote, "Thank you for the beautiful house, my dear. It's truly wonderful, but it's far too big for me. I hope you won't mind, but I'm planning to sell it and move into a cozy little bungalow instead." To her second son, she penned a similar note. "The car is absolutely stunning, but it's much too large for my needs. I'm going to trade it in for something smaller and more practical." Finally, to her third son, she wrote, "You truly understood what means the most to me. Thank you so much for the chicken. It was delicious." A plane was en route to Vancouver when a woman named Lily, seated in economy class, decided to move up to the first-class section and made herself comfortable. The flight attendant noticed her and approached politely, asking to see her ticket. Flight attendant: "Miss, you've paid for economy class, so I'm going to need you to return to your seat in the back." Lily: "I'm Lily. I'm fabulous. I'm headed to Vancouver, and I'm staying right here." Confused and slightly flustered, the flight attendant went to the cockpit to inform the pilot and co-pilot about the situation. Flight attendant: "There's a woman in first class who belongs in economy, and she refuses to move." The co-pilot decided to try reasoning with Lee. He approached her with a calm demeanor and explained, "Co-pilot, miss, since you've only paid for an economy ticket, you'll need to return to your assigned seat." Lily: I'm fabulous. I'm headed to Vancouver and I'm staying right here." The co-pilot returned to the cockpit, puzzled. Co-pilot: "I think we might need to have security waiting when we land. She just won't listen." The pilot, who overheard everything, chuckled. Pilot: "Don't worry, I've got this. My wife's just like her. Let me talk to her." The pilot walked up to Lily and leaned in, whispering something in her ear. Suddenly, Lily's eyes widened in surprise. Lily: "Oh, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, immediately getting up and heading back to her economy seat without another word. Both the flight attendant and the co-pilot were stunned. Flight attendant: "What did you say to her?" Pilot: "I simply told her, first class isn't going to Vancouver." 3 elderly friends were reminiscing about the challenges of aging. 60 is the toughest age, Ruth, who was 60, said with a sigh. "You always feel like you need to go to the bathroom, but then nothing really happens." Maxine, who was 70, chuckled and said, "Oh, that's nothing. At 70, you can't seem to get things moving at all. You take every kind of laxative, eat all the bran you can, and still end up sitting on the toilet all day with no results." Gilda, the 80-year-old, shook her head with a smile. 80 is the worst age by far. "Do you have trouble with peeing too?" Ruth asked. "No, I have no problem with that," Gilda replied. "I pee like a racehorse every morning at 6 a.m. sharp." Maxine then asked, And what about your bowel movements? Not a problem there either, Gilda answered. I have a bowel movement every morning at 6:30. Ruth was curious. So, if you pee at 6 a.m. and have a bowel movement at 6:30, what's so difficult about being 80? Gilda shrugged with a grin. The trouble is I don't wake up until On the first night of their honeymoon, the husband was nervously contemplating how to break the news to his bride about his stinky feet and smelly socks. At the same time, the wife was secretly worrying about how to confess her own secret, her terrible morning breath, which she had managed to hide until now. After some inner turmoil, the husband finally mustered up the courage and said, I have a confession to make. The wife, relieved to hear those words, leaned in closer, looked into his eyes, and said, Darling, so do I. Taken aback, the husband recoiled slightly and blurted out, Don't tell me you've eaten my socks.